Our next panel is going to cover technology ensuring good mobile broadband user experience. And I'd like to ask the moderator to come up, Ghazi Atallah, Managing Director at neXgen. There he is. I was looking. And I'm going to introduce each of the panelists also while we're here. Hatem Bamatraf, Group CTO of Etisalat, is here. Mounir Ladki, CTO of MYCOM, is here. Imad Hamed, CTO of Alfa. Yousef Mutawe, CTO of Zain Jordan. Satim Al-Balooshi, Executive Vice President, Network Development and Operations of Du. Igor Leprince, Senior Vice President, Nokia. Dr. Junaid Syed, Product Line Management for CommScope. And Rafat Al-Tashman, Technology Consultant. Turn it over to you.
Thank you. Well, hello, gentlemen, many of you on the panel. So we'd like to, as Tony is here and he's going to ensure that we keep it lively. We have an hour and 15 minutes, and of course the topic is ensuring good mobile broadband user experience, which is a very broad topic. And I think under that we can cover many things. And we've already exchanged some ideas on what to cover underneath that broad topic. What enables basically ensuring good mobile broadband user experience, or what enables ensuring good user experience. We're talking about the 4 elements that hopefully each of you will address in his own way. So we can generate a discussion and then generate Q&A initially between the panel and then eventually from the audience. And the four areas are, of course, infrastructure or coverage, from 2G, 3G to 4G and to beyond and so on. So infrastructure or coverage. The second area will be on the OSS, BSS side. We just heard a good presentation also on BSS. The third area will be on new services for mobile broadband users. What can we look at, expect, discuss, or what are the technologies that will enable that? And last but not least is around big data or analytics, if you want, of big data to enable you to provide a better mobile user experience. So I'll ask in the order of seating, I'll ask each one of you to just start with your point of view of this topic, and we'll go through a Q&A. Hatem?
Yeah. I think the customer experience topic is it's a very interesting topic, and we heard the last speaker from Redney speaking about the importance of customer experience. I think first of all, we have probably to acknowledge the fact that most of the service providers today are on the same level of customer experience. And this is, it's debatable. I would understand that some people would say that this operator might provide some good level of customer. But all in all, I think when we talk or we look at the overall customer experience, I think most of the service providers in the telecom industry have the same level of experience. And why I'm saying this, because I want then to come to the point that I want to address. Which is basically why do we need to implement a customer experience if most of the service providers are having the same level of customer experience? So that means that if a customer churned from this service provider and he goes to this service provider, he would face the same challenges of customer experience. And as I said, it might be a little bit better here and there from a network level of call drop or coverage, but as an overall, I think from a customer experience compared to other industries like banking industries or aviation industries that we have touched on today, I think we are far away from those industries. So the point that I want to address, and most of the service providers are on the same level of customer experience. That means customer experience, it's not only will be used from a competitive advantage, because most of them are actually on the same level. Customer experience should be used to help you as well in running your day-to-day business, but it should enable as well new revenue streams. It should enable as well saving in the way that you run your operation, moving towards, for example, moving to the online store and running your sales operation, or moving some of the traffic to your online store. It will save you a lot of operational expenditure. So the point that I want to address here is that customer experience, we should think of customer experience as well as a saving opportunity for service providers. We should think about customer experience as well as an innovation vehicle for service providers to start thinking about the digital space, enabling new revenue streams from customer experience. And of course, it's a competitive vehicle or a competitive engine as well that somehow will help you in addressing your market positively.
Thank you, Hatem. Interesting thoughts. Mounir, this is your domain, obviously, so would like to hear your perspectives on operators in the region and how are they adopting this technology, or how are they benefiting from it?
Sure. First of all, I would say that if we look at the space, what we define, first, customer experience is not something very well defined. It's a concept, it's an approach. Others say it's a journey. If you look at, for example, how Gartner defined it in their hype cycle, they define it basically as still a concept that is in its infancy. It's still at the start of the innovation cycle. It hasn't even reached the peak yet in terms of the hype cycle, and they give it 5 to 10 years to come. And I say the biggest difficulty managing customer experience was it doesn't fit in any of the organizational silos of the service providers today. They run today sales and marketing, operations, etc. And at some point they tried to set up a customer experience, I would say, competence, and have a customer experience chief officer in charge of that. But we don't see this really coming into any fruition. Even in Europe, they were just like some very, very tiny and light, initiatives there. So I think what happens is what operators are trying to realize now, what they should do is first identify a customer experience strategy. What is it that I want to do? Is it, as Hatem mentioned, I want to generate new revenue streams with CEM? Or is it I just want to fight churn and make sure that I retain my subscribers and and proactively manage customer experience? So what we see is the two approaches now starting to emerge. On the one hand, operators want to use customer experience to generate new revenue streams. And to that, they are relying, maybe we will talk about it later, on big data analytics, exposing for example, the mass of data they have to online advertising, or using it to create new bundles that they offer to their subscribers. And there are some successful examples there that we can talk about. So this is one big portion. The other one, that is, I think, where most of the money is being spent right now, or at least most of the thinking is going. We've seen RFPs and a lot of system being implemented, is what we call the operational CEM, is how am I going to utilize CEM to offer a better quality of service, to reduce churn, and to make happier customers. And to do that, and I'll end with this, the operators need to look at three things that they need to put in place. One, they obviously need to have a real-time visibility into the customer experience, into the quality of service that they are offering. That's number one. They need to measure it. But this alone is not enough. It just gives you the visibility. Second, you need to relate this to the network, to their network, so that at any time they can not only have the visibility on the QoS, but address the underlying network issues and on the quality of service to maintain that customer experience at a steady level, and even doing it proactively.
Okay.
And the last point is we are trying also to, we were saying automation solutions also getting there, because you need to operate efficiently in order to keep cost under control. And this is the area where I see the most activity currently, and there are a few successful examples even in this region here.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a minute. Imad and Yousef sitting next to each other is a good thing. You both operate in a challenged markets, and where the market is economically challenged as well as it being a price-sensitive market. What are your perspective on either customer experience or other types of technologies that help you get your job done, basically, which is delivering better customer experience, but balancing that with the amount of investment that you put on the table?
Actually, I prefer to call it customer satisfaction in terms of customer experience.
Okay.
I will share with the audience here our experience at Alfa, because we have all the technology that you can imagine actually in Alfa these days. We started, of course, by the old-fashioned between brackets 2G network. It was 4 years ago, and the deployment of the 3G started around 3 years ago also, using 2.1 3G, and now we are on nationwide 3G with very good performance. Recently, we decided to go more deep in this 3G network, and we started deployment of the U900, which we call it deep indoor. The beauty of the U900 technology, if we can name it as a technology, because you are providing very good customer experience or customer satisfaction in terms of coverage, and we are adding additional capacity on your network. Of course, we are still using our normal 3G network, and we are supporting this 3G deployment by the U900 one. The problem that recently we started the LTE. So LTE is totally different experience from the end user perspective. For the end user now, 2G is not anymore a network. For him, if he have only 2G signal, it's not a network. He need either HSPA plus or LTE. That's it. And the LTE, it's challenging. We have several problems. I mean, in Lebanon, exactly. We have a terminal issue. We have some transmission issue, but we are trying to solve it in the coming months, I hope at least. So in our network, we have all technology, 2G, 3G, and 3G, 2 technology, 2.1 and U900, and now we have LTE 1800 and 800. Right. So it's a very complex network. It's not easy to operate such kind of layering and technology at the same time. For coverage issue, of course, we are adding a lot of layering on the network, micro solution, pico solution, indoor solution, and of course we have this double 3G network to absorb all this data traffic that grow exceptionally in the coming for the last year. Okay, but we are doing good.
Okay, thank you. We'll be back again. So, Yousef, your perspective on the same situation, or a similar situation, I should say, you're in.
Sure. Very good afternoon. I do believe, looking at the customer experience after the data era is taking really a different meaning and a different direction when it comes to operation. For sure, operators within the region, they failed to build the right business model for data. And as well, at the same time, they failed as well to build the digital portfolio in order to magnify the revenues that may generated out of the data network. At the same time, with the complexity of the data networks, operators were requested to have more understanding to the customer behavior and more understanding to the attributes that may lead to satisfaction and to acceptance of the customer. Talking about the data dimensions, before we were talking just about a voice signal and a mobile that works just on one mode. Today we are talking about a diversity of attributes that really govern and control and result into a satisfaction to the customer. Talking about the network itself and how complex are the networks in today's market. We are talking about different umbrellas. Working together requires more optimization, more efforts to be in place, and more skills. We are seeing that the evolution of the technology is superseding and is faster more than the experience that the operator are building within a short time frame. So there is no time really, there is no enough time for the operators themselves to build the right knowledge and experience needed in order to satisfy their customers within the complexity of the networks. On the other direction, operators need to build their back offices the right way. Before, we are talking about one attribute to the customer experience. Today, we are talking about multiple attributes. One of them, as mentioned, is the smartphone itself, the applications, the network. All of that has to be collected and aggregated together in order to build the right formula how to satisfy the customer. To be realistic, we didn't see right now a complete platform that really assists and control the different attributes and the different inputs from the customer where you can take the right decision in due time and to tackle the issue of the customer the right way. Talking about CRM and big data, yes, those are one of the tools where you can aggregate different inputs from different sources and to come up with right understanding to the customers, but yet things are immature, and till the moment we didn't see a right platform or a right, let us say, understanding to the full picture of what may serve the customer in a better way. So things are very challenging in today's marketplace. Operators need to invest more into the customer experience, and this is a cost factor, not a revenue factor at this stage. And I do believe operators, they need to get into additional dimension and to have a collective picture about satisfying the customers, taking into consideration the different portfolios that may come into their businesses within the coming future. Talking about machine-to-machine, talking about cloud services, applications, you need to have a holistic picture and to have all of them embedded within the same platform and to get into a better understanding to the customer's needs. So if I wanted to assess the situation in Jordan, we have certain steps toward having better understanding to the customer. Within our call center and customer care, we have adopted certain solutions where we take the real-time measurements from the network, besides the customer behavior as well, besides as well the congested areas within the network. We try to correlate all of that together to get into better understanding of the service delivered to the customer. And there are many to do as well, as mentioned in Redney's presentation right now, talking about the social CRM platform. This could be additional tool where you can link what the customers are feeling and experiencing every day within the social feeds and to have certain measures against them. So issues are really divergent and requires a lot of investment, a lot of efforts, and requires to strategize a way how to serve the customer within this complex topology right now.
Okay, interesting. Many challenges, and we'd like to discuss the potential solutions as well afterwards. Saleem, if I may just ask you, you operate in a maturer market, if I can call it that way, and how do you balance investment in technologies in the areas that we mentioned, from infrastructure to customer service to new product development and big data and so on? What's your approach to balancing that investment and covering the issues that you have?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So actually, I'd like to start with the different perspective of my colleague. Actually, operators has succeeded definitely in transforming and enabling all changes happen in the world, all the changes. And during 7 years, the operators has proven that they adopted to all changes from perspective, again, from technology perspective and building infrastructure, where in 7 years, we transferred from 2G, 2.5G, 3G, 3.5G, 4G, and today we are talking about enhanced 4G, and as our partners highlighted, we are talking about 5G as well. So from infrastructure building, we have innovated. We have proven that telecom operators are the main key players in that domain. And however, on the other side, from customer experience, from product and services perspective, from monetization of this new domain which we have enabled, the data, that is where we are lacking. And our main challenge, we build all these things on top of the model of telephony. We were a telephony companies, where our cash cow coming from telephony, and we build our customer experience and the way we serve customer on telephony platform. Our OSS, BSS are built on telephony, voice management, voice handling, and the way we operate network. Our OpEx and the way we operate network are based on telephony. So during these 7 years, due to fast and exponential growth on data, we did not have time as an ecosystem. Actually, it starts from our shareholders, our board of directors, our CEOs and CXOs, all the way. The whole this layer did not have time to step back and review what is going on and what will happen, of course, strategically in the way forward. We have definitely a lot of opportunities. And again, building the data and data network today, we cannot say we are at that pessimistic situation. There are a lot of things has transformed in telecom operators. The way we are serving customers today, at least we have been ranked recently #1 in the social media, just because we gave specific focus, leadership focus on that domain. And we are ranked #1 on handling our customer requirements in that domain from social media perspective. During last 3 years, we have transformed our customer services, again, internally by optimizing the way we are dealing with customers. The way from our relationship with our outsource partner, we have strengthened and optimized that relationship. We have reviewed the processes and the empowerment of the agent, and introduced new tools up to some extent within our capabilities. As our CEO highlighted in answering our Neil question, the disruptive direction in customer service, product launch, that is the thing that require different strategic direction from top down. Again, this is the perspective I'm highlighting. And from product and services, one of the drivers of not being agile and fast to market is the complex product and services that we are launching. After early days, we used to provide only voice. After voice, again, all these things came on top of voice infrastructure. Our OSS, BSS became very complex, up to the level to introduce specific services, small services, takes long time to introduce. So again, this is from business perspective, we have to review, we have to start simplifying our product and services and the way we define our product and services in order to capture and move forward in this changing industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Saleem. It seems like you're taking an approach which is strategy first and then identifying which routes to take and what technology to implement. Interesting as well for the rest of the discussion later on. Igor, we've heard a lot about complexity, and we've heard a lot about both infrastructure and customer experience management complexity. From a solution service point of view, where do you see this going? What kind of technologies or services would be available to address the issues that operators are highlighting around complexity and new services?
Sure. No, thank you very much. Well, first of all, I think we should have been a bit maybe ambitious with the title of the panel and call that great mobile broadband experience. Not only good, because I think we need great mobile broadband experience. I mean, our vision is that in order for our customer here on this panel to achieve that, we'll probably go by 2020 to 1 gigabyte of personalized data per user per day. And what does that mean? How do we achieve that? Actually, one of the ways to achieve that is LTE, but maybe not the LTE that you know about. Here I mean L for latency, T for throughput, or call it capacity, I think that's what you were talking, or coverage, and E maybe for experience, as Hassan was saying, or maybe entertainment in some of the countries like Saudi, for example. So let me say a couple of words on each of these three. So starting with the T for capacity, or the T for throughput. So how are we going to achieve 1,000 times more capacity that we have today? I think it's three key things in our vision. It's obviously what a lot of our customers rely on us, which is to be more efficient, to bring more equipment and services to achieve 10 times more capacity. But it's going to be also 10 times more spectrum. We have to remember we're not Japan, we're not Korea. We cannot switch off 2G networks, 3G networks, because the majority of our customers in Middle East and even more in Africa still have handsets that are only supporting 2G and 3G. So we need single RAN, we need multi-technology, we need to be able to refarm, for example. I think we talked a little bit about that, be able to move 2G to 3G on the 900 megahertz, to move 2G to 4G on the 1800 megahertz, for example. So to have the TRA and other regulatory helping us to do that, so we can really use the spectrum in a very efficient way. And of course, we're going to have to build more sites as well, so small cells come into the picture. So I think the first thing is this 1,000 times more capacity. The second thing is very often this is forgotten, and it goes hand in hand in the way we look at things, is latency. Customer today, good experience. Customer means being able to download a web page in less than a second, for example. And in order to do that, you've got multiple servers, multiple sites. You need to have end-to-end networks that have a latency less than 50 milliseconds, for example. And that's what we're trying to target as a technology provider for our customers, so they can have this latency, so they can really provide this web page being able to load in less than a second, which would mean a good customer experience. So that's for the latency. And also trying to help operators to have the content closer to the customer, like liquid application. So instead of loading the content very, very far away from the customer, having actually that content that they need very close to the customer. Okay. And the third part I think have been talked about a lot is experience. We talked a little bit about big data this morning, a lot of data. And I think we are right now looking at big data already. But we're looking at it as a way to report. And I think the big change, and the one that we need to help operators to do, is how do we move to real time, as Yousef was saying, for example. So how do we use this big data, the relevant data, at the right time, and actually provide customer experience and be able to measure real time this customer experience, or be able to be proactive in managing the customer experience. Okay. So that's our belief. So capacity, latency, and experience, or LT if you prefer, latency, throughput, and experience.
Well, it'd be interesting to hear the operator's point of view on the capacity discussion as well. But I'll just move on to the vendors, of course, on the panel. And Dr. Junaid, your perspective on this as well, from a vendor point of view, kind of solutions and services. I think you'll be more on the access side, but please, your perspective.
I think it's very well said today in the morning also that by Mohammed, that from the regulatory bodies, and then from Khalifa also, and other guys, and today also. From the before going to the experience, I think let's take a step back, the expectations. So there are some expectations, and the moment you deliver your services, that translated into the experience. And the outcome of the experience become the results, that whether it is going in the positive side or a negative side. So the expectations are definitely growing every day. And the expectations sometimes vary from regions to region, from customer base to customer base, and all those things. From age group also. So earlier, few years back, the topic of discussions in the living rooms were different than what are today, as somebody very well said. If you go to anywhere, the most of the time in a living room, the topic of discussions, even the teenagers, is on the applications, on the devices, and those things. So definitely all these new applications and new devices which are coming up are going to those customer base which have not even gone to the formal educations. So they are basically reaching to each and every person. And these applications are reaching even to those regions where even people don't have power to charge their mobile set. So keep as a broader perspective, definitely the need is there and expectations are there. Now the next thing comes whether we can deliver that or not. What is the experience? And definitely everybody, all these stakeholders are trying their level best to deliver this, so the experience becomes good. But in the end, the outcome is that whether we are able to retain our customers or we are going to lose our customer. And then these start the discussion of the subscriber churn rate, which is a very important topic these days, and everybody start talking about it. And the quality of the networks and all those things. So if you think from the expectations or experience point of view, I will say there are 3 C's. One is definitely, as mentioned just now, is the capacity. Second C is the coverage, is reliable or not. And third C is the cost, whether the cost is such that it is affordable or not, that service. Now from that perspective, to move forward, I think from a vendor point of view, from Andrew CommScope, I will say that we need to see that each one of us has to play our role to achieve those things. Now for the operators, definitely there's another challenge, and that is to harness the new opportunities of the revenue. And definitely that has to be addressed also. So the most important thing as a technologist, I will think one of the intelligent way is to use the technologies, right technologies at the right time. So those people who will be using the right technology at the right time definitely will be more successful as compared to others who are not using the right technologies. So the most important thing is to really be fully aware of the new technology sets. And from the new technology sets, sometimes we focus more on the new technologies, which are more state-of-the-art technologies, like digital signal processing and all those things. But sometimes we miss very core technologies to the fundamentals. So we need to go to the fundamentals. For example, for connectivity point of view, there are only two mediums, either guided or unguided, optical fiber or copper or wireless. Now, of course, optical fiber and all those things have their own benefit. But from the wireless point of view, one of the very important things is to see the overall things. How can you achieve higher capacity, better coverage, and reduce the cost? Now, from capacity point of view, I think capacity is not that important. The more important thing is the availability of the capacity. And availability of the capacity depends upon one other factor, that is the density. So there are two things going on. One is the increasing the density. Second thing, increasing the capacities. So from this perspective, I will suggest that those technologies which definitely make the life easy for all the stakeholders. For wireless connectivity point of view, efficient use of spectrum, that is first thing, because a spectrum is a finite resource and directly related to your availability of the capacities. Second is spectrum cost money. That is also not only CapEx, but OpEx also sometimes. And second thing which is very important is basically to see that sometimes what happens that because of the CapEx pressure, we go for a solution which is low cost. So apparently it looks very good on the technical point, but if you look over the total cost of ownership over the 5 years, basically you have lost, and plus you lose the opportunities of the revenue also. So I think that is very important to look at a broader perspective. And just now, as you said, people are moving 2G, 3G, 4G, so it means world is changing. So the solution needs to be scalable. Only then it will really move forward. Otherwise, it will totally go to dead end. And you, every time when you will modernize your networks, you have to go start from 0, 0. So that is my perspective on this.
No, this seems to be the case always. When we get to a certain maturity with the technology, then we need to kind of start again with the next technology set. So it's an interesting challenge for operators. Last but not least, Rafat, your perspective on the same topic or the same perspective of what are the technologies and potential services that will help the operators from a complexity and new service point of view?
First, let me explain a little bit more in the ensuring customer experience. Actually, this concept is not whatever user experience or perception today is completely different than what been yesterday or the year before. If you look for the user before 1 year back, he may accept to have 30, 40 seconds to download the website, but now he is not accepting more than 3, 4 seconds to go to the website and download and pay his bill, or he would like to see it as you are changing the TV channel. Or so the concept of ensuring customer experience is an evolving concept. User experience is an evolving concept that you need to follow up with the customers. And here I would like to say that also customer experience is not only about the network capability or network capacity. It's actually the concept of customer experience starts from the day that he hearing about the offer. Once he purchased the offer, how easy to adapt or configure it in his take these services, ending by having and you start using the service itself. So it is that's why where you come to the technology from this point of view. If you look for it, is once you start taking the offer and choosing how he is going to pay for the bill, how he going to purchase the offer, is where we are talking about convergence billing system, where we are talking about convergent customer experience management system, where you can easily online have a capability to monitor the user and see how's the behavior of it, how fast you can solve his problem, how fast you can configure his services. Going back to the technology again, once you configure this in the convergence billing system and the OSS BSS, you go to the technology, which technology you are using, and as an operator, which technology you should use. Is it 3G? Is it LTE? Is it LTE Advanced? It is Wi-Fi. I believe that there is no one technology that can fit all the users each operator will need to analyze his network and see what's the application he would like to use in his network. And based on that, he can choose a combination of these networks. For example, he can use 3G and Wi-Fi, or 3G and LTE, or LTE Advanced, where he can monetize these services and allocate the resources based on the specific quality of services that he can offer it for the services. As mentioned by our colleague here, that yes, sometimes investing more in customer experience is actually sometimes is a headache, and there's not much revenue out of it at the initial stage. However, if you look for the people themselves, now if you go 4 years back to change the number or change your SIM card or change rate from one operator to other operator, it's find it difficult. Now with mobile network portability, with all these features of like even OTT provider that you can have the same number even in your devices, so it's very easy to change. People will be easy to change their they are not tolerant or to change their mobile numbers. So operator need to look at this point of view and accordingly keep the quality of services, and that will be reduce the churn rate from one point of view. The other option is that to invest more in the analytical or in this data. Operator already have a lot of big data, and this data actually it is as big, and there is a big opportunity. Once you talk about big data, that you are talking about big opportunity, where you can generate more revenue by analyzing this data, this data, which can compensate the investment on the customer experience that the operator are going to put. In a simple way, the operator should look for a different business model once they look for customer experience. Yes, you enhance customer experience, but your revenue may come from other areas. That's what we believe in Huawei.
Okay, interesting. Now, it'd be good to hear the perspective of the operators on, from a technology point of view. We heard the perspective of the vendors lately, but just want to hear the perspective of the operators on, is this helping you reduce complexity? Is it helping you do your job better? Or
Ghazi, I want just to rephrase a bit about the customer experience. Most of the operators today, they face two issues. One of them is the customers mostly are not satisfied, especially the ones who are moved from using a normal phone to a smartphone. This is one thing. And the other thing, that they don't have the right data warehouse layer that is really built in a proper way. Today, most of the operators who are serving data are moving from the voice network. And mostly they used to serve through having a macro layer of coverage. Now, in order to get better customer experience, and in order to tackle capacity issue and throughput issue, you need to go to the micro layer and to the localized coverage. And this is an area where most of the operators, they have to tune to. They have to move from the macro layer coverage into the localized one and start using the outdoor distributed antenna system. This is by today, if you go to the networks, you will see them from capacity-wise, they are not utilized more 40, 50%. But from experience-wise, they are not satisfying 40, 50% from the customers. The reasons behind that is the macro layer coverage is not really benefiting the need of the customer and doesn't really provide the signal level up to the customer expectation. Despite that, you have in the back train huge capacity, but in the front seats, you don't have the right capacity. So you need to move from the macro coverage to the micro one. And this is a practice that didn't start yet in our region. And yet, probably the outdoor DAS systems are very expensive. The solutions there are not yet mature, probably. Providers are not yet really delivering the right solutions for that. So by doing that, you will be able for sure to tackle the capacity and the throughput issue. And to do so, you need to have a backbone that is really solid and strong. Relying on just delivering an access coverage to the customers without having the backbone the right way, you will never be able to provide micro coverage adequately. So operators, they have to shift into micro layer of coverage, number one. Number two, they have to build the fiber to the antenna in order to be able to satisfy capacity and the throughput. For the third part, where we need to manage the expectations, we need to start building the data warehouse layer the right way and in proper way. Now, most likely, the ones who came from the IT domain, they don't understand the telecom attributes in a proper way. So you need right now to find who will be the right service provider or the right vendor for you to tackle the data warehouse, where you can not only plug in capacity issues and congestion issues and customer profiles, but as well to be as well able to connect to the social feeds, to be as well connect to the market research as well, and to the all dynamics within how to collect data. So those issues are hot right now and not addressed probably. And even if you have LTE, you will not be able to sort out the issue of capacity and throughput. In order to do so, you need to have the antenna just close to the customer. And you will not be able to do that without having a small micro coverage layer beneath the macro coverage layer to serve the customers a better way.
Okay. Imad, just your perspective, since you operate in similar markets, do you see the same issues or are they different?
Ghazi, despite the fact that the complexity of managing several layers, micro, macro layer, just I want to highlight the fact that technology and the network itself was never a blocking point to any strategy. Actually, what we need is a strategy. If you can see, even from the discussion of this morning, we don't have yet one strategy. We have strategies. And the network, again, is flexible enough with a huge complexity, yes, but I think we are capable to manage this complexity. But we need to know where we are going, just to start the deployment from today. Today, we are already late. We need to know the strategy from today because any strategy needs time to be deployed. I need a preparation phase that may go to 1 year. So we need to know from now in which direction we are going.
Interesting.
Is it voice unlimited? Is it data unlimited? It's OTT without OTT? We don't have one strategy again in our region, actually. If we compare it to the Asian market, no, in the Asian market, they have somehow one strategy that they are following, and that's for why they are number one in the data, in the MBB world, let's say.
Is it a strategy for the region or a strategy by operator? Actually, Hatem and I were talking about this topic at the break, very, very interesting, about the technology strategy versus the business model. I mean, i.e., what are you trying to achieve and how is technology going to enable you to achieve it? And then how does Etisalat at the group level approach this as a challenge, and especially operating in multiple countries?
I think, and my colleagues here have highlighted the issue of customer experience. And it seems to be that most of the colleagues here are coming from the network side. And I think that experience, if we want to define customer experience, I think it's more than an infrastructure and it is more than broadband. It's more than only providing capacity and coverage. It's a bit more than that. And if we ask ourselves as an industry, as a telecom service provider, if a customer, for example, wants to order a product from this service provider, let's say that a launch of a new Samsung or an iPhone device, and you want to order this product, you go online and you select a number, for example, or a device with a specific product, and you want to order it to come to your home. Will you be able, I challenge my colleagues here, does anybody of you provide these kind of services? And I think that you will rarely find service providers that they can do this. This is an experience that we are talking about. In the contrary, for example, you could go online and go to the Apple store and you just click in the online store and click for a specific device. You just put your credit card details and your home address, and there you go. In few days, maximum 1 week time, it will be at your doorstep. This is the experience that we're talking about. We're talking about an experience where if you go to a retail shop, how the company or the retail shop or the service provider will differentiate you from the other guy that he stands in the queue. You are a high-end customer that your bill by the end of the month is a few thousands, and the guy that is next to you, he pays the service provider few hundred dirhams or probably 50 dirham. And you give that kind of differentiation. Similar like where we compare ourselves like the aviation industry. And I always like to relate to this, to the aviation industry, because I think that they have done a very good job in customer experience. In aviation industry, if you look at their product, the product basically, it's one product. It's just they are moving people from one place to the other. That's the product that they offer. However, the experience around the product is different. So in economy class, it's a different experience, in business and in first class, but the product is the same, which is moving people from one place to the other. And the beauty of this part is that the customer is willing to pay 10 times or 20 times probably the price of the product because of this experience, because of this differentiated experience. And we see this model in front of us. It's working very well, and people are accepting this. People are willing to pay for a differentiated experience, for a differentiated. And I think that we should learn from this. We should take that kind of business models and apply it. And I think from a technology point of view, we can support this. From an IT, there is, of course, challenges, but we have to adopt this. We have to accept this, and we have to work in moving towards this direction. I'm not just limiting the experience again, and I say it's not in fiber optic, it's not in LTE, it's not in coverage. It's a total experience that we have to look at it from end to end.
Interesting. Saleem, I'm going to get to you because we're raising quite a few issues. Some of them are, I think, some of them are incumbent to the telecom industry. It's typically a technology-driven industry. So we start projects from a technology point of view rather than from either a business or a need point of view. So sometimes the projects are driven by the CTOs. And most times the projects should be driven by the, don't know what they're called these days, but either the experience management or the sales or even at the strategic level of the company, whether everybody gets together and discusses where we're going to go and how. Is this still the case in your point of view? Are we still in an industry that is driven by technology versus driven by need or customer requirements? What's Du's perspective on this?
I think from infrastructure perspective, yes, it is technology driven. Building the capacity perspective and connectivity and these things are technology driven. And as Hatem highlighted, the main challenge is the experienced people, is the marketing people in the organization. Maybe again, as a technology person, I'm biased to that, but this is the way I see it. From technology perspective, building infrastructure, we are ahead of the game. But the main challenge is the experienced people in the organization and the product people defining the product, designing the product to maximize and monetize utilizing this infrastructure. So this is the main challenge in understanding. Especially I personally worked in customer experience and customer operation side for almost 2 years. And again, the misunderstanding specifically is when you define a product, what is the expected experience? And the time to market and the challenges around all these things, again, from competition, from different perspective of that.
Okay, interesting. Igor, it seems you want to say something. You're eager.
Maybe just to challenge that a little bit. I think I totally agree with what Hatem and Saleem said, but I actually do not think that we necessarily build the capacity in our region. I mean, if you look at the way US operators, Korean operators, Japanese operators took the capacity and made it available everywhere and created really a wow factor with LTE. I don't think we did that. I don't think we yet did that. So I think we look actually at the business very, very closely and say, is it worth it? Is it going to work? Well, actually, there are a lot of successful operators around the world. And again, the timing might not be right for our region right now, but that did that, built the capacity, made it available, and then they managed to monetize that at a later stage. It's a risk. It's a big step, but I think the capacity is not fully built yet. I think if LTE was taking off in this region big time, I think you will see that actually the network are not built yet for this demand. And I think we can generate that needs. Actually, you were talking about, do we look at the needs? Well, actually, we can also generate the needs with very good marketing, with very good experience, like Hatem said, for example. So.
Mounir, I'm just getting to you just for a minute. This is, again, the topic is evolving. We're talking about, okay, do we really need all the capacity? And if we build it, how can we understand the customer's requirements and how can we actually generate new products, new packages, new whatever to be able to leverage that capacity, or is it the other way around? What's your view?
Well, I think I'm of the opinion that for the moment the challenge is not necessarily on the network side, on the technology first. I agree that technology today is available, okay? And yes, there is today more, I think also some of the colleagues said there is more capacity from the technology point of view than what is required even today. I think the issues are in few areas. One is when you build the capacity, you need to understand first where you need it exactly. And this is today, yes. Today you look at an operator like AT&T, for example, in the US, they are moving full speed into when they deployed LTE, they were one of the first to deploy LTE and make it available at large scale. But they directly realized that they will not be able to realize the commercial potential of LTE without relying on a very strong layer of small cells. Okay, and it's now one of the largest deployment of small cells in the world right now that is happening in the US with AT&T, and we are working with them on that front. But I think most importantly are two things. One is really from a customer experience point of view, when you offer the capacity, you need to be able to say what is the quality of service that I am able to offer with it, because I think this is where the differentiation will come. This is where you can monetize this capacity that you are offering to the subscriber. Again, the question is when service providers, and in this region there haven't been yet such initiatives, but the question is when service providers will take the risk and will feel that they are ready to put a differentiated monetary value on the capacity that they are offering. Because today they are offering a lot of capacity. They can get better at it by putting, small cells, by targeting better where certain categories of customers are, etc. But they are not attaching today a monetary value to this, and they are not applying differentiated charging. And I think that this is because of two challenges they are facing. One is organizational and cultural. Today, most of the organizations are still run by technology. This is by far the most powerful organization. This is where lots of the budgets are, and most of the effort. So there should be some risk taking and some more new business models where based on differentiation and of monetization of quality of service. And the second thing is, I think from a technical point of view, the limitation is more on the systems side. It's more on the IT. And Hatem said maybe we can get there, but this is where the challenge is today. There are very few operators today who have systems allowing them to have real-time visibility on the quality of service or their customers' quality of service related to, for example, the infrastructure, and be able almost in real-time and automated fashion to manage the network in order to deliver a certain quality of experience. This doesn't exist today. You have multiple teams who have to get involved. There's a lot of cost. There is a lot of time taken. So no one dares then no one is ready to say, I commit, we can go for it. No one will raise his hand today in an operator to say, we can get it. So no one is doing it. And until such time comes, right, you will still need to deploy more capacity and offer it at and try to work on the pricing schemes just to recover as much as you can on the investment. And this is so today, organization and taking the risk and saying, I can charge for differentiated experience, because only when you start making money out of it that it will become really very at the top of the agenda, and you will start it will start driving the business. And the second thing is systems, and putting them in place that allows you to get there.
Agility, so interesting. I just would like to start taking questions from the audience, and while the audience prepare some interesting questions, I'll ask one more. But please be ready with your questions in the audience. We'll go back to the vendors. Some challenges. Is it? And forgive me for asking this kind of question, but are the vendors really pushing the service providers towards technology more than they should do, or is it a balanced approach from a vendor's perspective? Are you really looking at it, or are you really pushing technology and it becomes more of a technology discussion versus a requirement need discussion for the operators?
In my view, technology is driven by the need. There is no doubt about it, which is a natural fact. It is the need which basically gives birth to innovations and the technologies and all those things. And there has to be a balance, you're right, that what is needed and what is delivered. So from the capacity point of view, there is a global trend. This is a fact. Nobody can deny the fact that there is a need for capacity. Now, the need may vary from region to region, from customer base to customer base. That is possible. But overall, if you look at the trend, all the technologies of engineering, science, ITs, everything is moving towards that direction, and everybody is talking about it. So definitely there's a global trend there. There's no denial to that. Now, to increase the capacity, I think very well said here, that LTE and all those things, a lot of focus is on the access side, but there needs to be a lot of focus on the other layers also, like a backhaul and those things. So for that perspective, for the capacity enhancement for the backhaul, the question comes, which is the best backhaul for LTE to support? Or in other words, definitely, I will not go to the more detail, but just go to the fundamentals. From the backhaul point of view also, just consider it as a pipe. The only way to increase the capacity is either increase the size of the pipe, which means either increase the bandwidth, go either optical fiber or those things, or use a wider channel. Or second approach is use the pipe more efficiently, and that is basically improve its spectral efficiency. But there is a third dimension also to that, which sometimes we miss it, and that is the spatial efficiency. And that is the thing which somebody mentioned here also about the small cell development and all those things. That is very important things which needs to be addressed. But I think while increasing the, because spectral efficiency can give you higher capacity, but it is the spatial efficiency which decide the availability. And that is why I was saying earlier also, availability of the capacity is very important. Now from the spatial efficiency, what are you trying to do basically? You are trying to use your spectrum more efficiently, and you are basically giving bigger pipe size while still using a narrower pipe size. The other approach, one is definitely the small cell and all that thing. The other approach, a solution I'm talking about from a technology point of view, is to use the spectrum more efficiently, which means that earlier, if you remember, a lot of emphasis is on the radio technologies, digital technologies, but not on the spectrum technologies, how to use spectrum more efficiently. Now, in that way, I think very important component, as we think from Andrew point of view, I'm talking about, that use of the radiators or the antennas, which radiate minimum energies to the side. So antenna with the low side lobe levels. And that will allow the frequency reuse better. And that will allow a better capacity also. Because the higher spectral techniques can only be used if spatial efficiency is good. Otherwise, you will have a very high technology but not able to use it. I think these all technologies have to be taken care of, and then definitely there will be a good solution. And as far as your original question goes, whether there is a need or there is a push, in my personal opinion, there is a need. Although in some cases there may be exaggerations also, but I think overall the global trend shows there is a need. And that is why I'm a member of the HC committee also, who develops the standards, TM4 committee, and we meet after every 6 months in France. And I'm also a member of the FWCC, which develops standard for FCC. And in those committees also, we see a lot of pressure to develop these standards so that the people can deliver high capacity. And I'm sure those regulatory bodies are under those pressures because there is a need for it. Otherwise, they would not have been under that pressure.
Okay, good. Rafat?
Yeah, actually, exactly. I agree with this opinion regarding this. The need is behind the technology-driven. But actually, I noticed that in some market, actually, even in the GCC, for example, in the initial phase of LTE, actually the driven came from the operator. The operator is the one who pushing toward the vendor, and everybody, I need LTE to be ready. I need my network to be LTE. And the other market, like example Jordan, I know that they are looking for, the regulator is pushing for introducing LTE to the market, actually more than any other else. However, the smartphone, at the end of the day, the demand comes from the operator or from the user, and the user, as long as there is an ecosystem end to end from smartphone devices, then operator will find himself under pressure to push actually vendor to deploy LTE and LTE Advanced and maybe 5G. Actually, from vendor point of view, it's better to prolong the life cycle of any product, to be honest. But from the same thing, the for operator, it's as long as I can relong or reduce the churn rate or long the life cycle of the use of customer is added value for the operator. The same thing, as long as I make the life cycle of any product or services more is better for the vendor, for the operator, and everybody. But however, the demand, the end user is not happy with that. He wants the new services, he wants high speed, he's demanding, simply because, and I have to satisfy him, otherwise he will churn it to other people. And this is the story.
Actually, I've been to Korea and Japan, and you definitely, there's a wow factor as soon as you start using the infrastructure. As soon as you connect, there is a wow factor. There is a, the kind of, wow, this is great in terms of service. And somebody decided to do that. Somebody, an operator or a service provider, I'd like to call them better, that decided to, this is a business that they want to be in, and they went all out and decided to go for a big infrastructure and deliver that kind of a service. So that's quite interesting, because we do have examples where there is a need, and we have examples where operators, the service providers, have decided to go more on the efficiency side with the current infrastructure that they have and a better user experience. Just like to see if there are questions from the audience. There's someone back there. Please, your name and...
My name is Ahmed Hanande. I'm the CEO of Zain Jordan.
You can't ask questions if you're the CEO.
Yeah, seeing such a big number of people with a technical background got me to ask the question to the CTOs and the technical people. When are we going to come to a conference and you speak with the same confidence of the new innovative solutions that your teams come up with in coordination with the commercial teams that contributes to a new revenue for the company, utilizing the know-how that you have about the infrastructure, the technology, how the technology works, your relation with the vendors, knowing that we pay 50% of our expenses on the areas that you're responsible for.
The way we are looking at the telecom again, and I believe there is confusion. It is all about networking, about collaborative and value creation networking. The challenge now, we as a technical team or as an industry being asked to compete with another industry, which is, again, we are talking about an industry which is fully regulated, which is, again, there are specific expectations from shareholders. There are specific controls from internal and external audits. And we are being demanded and compared to compete with an industry which is like two guys in a garage industry, which is, again, unfair competition with the OTTs. And the only way to solve this issue is we have to collaborate. As everybody was highlighting in early stage, there is no way to compete. No way that I can say I can compete with the VoIP provider, somebody having a VoIP gateway somewhere, and I have to invest on that. And my way of doing things through procurement process, through my vendor expectation of the cost, CapEx and OpEx, no way to compete with them. So again, we have to understand which business we are in, what is our core capabilities, what are our strengths, and we need to build that ecosystem. Otherwise, we being demanded or requested to innovate in an area not in our domain. No. I don't believe it is fair game. I don't believe it is fair game, and we'll go nowhere. We'll keep communicating, and we will not reach anywhere with this discussion.
Yes. You want me to?
I want you to add something.
No, I think it's not a question of technology or CTOs that they should solve this problem. I think it's a problem, or it's a challenge that the whole industry is facing. It's not only network or CTOs or CIOs. It's a complete, and I don't think it's even a single operator issue. It's an overall industry that we are seeing. We are at a crossroads right now. There are challenges on ARPUs, on revenues, and there is no certainty as well of the future. We don't know what's going to happen 5 years' time. It's funny enough, I came across a very interesting presentation by one of the consultants where he said that ever since the age of 1800, where the industry were structured properly, this is the first time where we had a factory in the middle of the structure, and we have a set of suppliers and distributors, and then we have retailers and we have customers. and the money used to flow from customers to retailers to distributors to factory to suppliers. And that, of course, this was at the era of 1800, and that started in the north of England, and it started with the textile factory. That structure have continued for a long time until, of course, the internet came and the digital evolution or revolution came, where that structure have changed right now. Probably from a structure point of view, it's the same, where a factory, it is in the middle of the structure, and there are distributors, and there are retailers, and there are customers, but the money, the way it flow, it's a bit different. If you look at Google, for example, factory in the middle of the structure. Let's take YouTube, for example. YouTube, if we talk a Google factory that they produce a product called YouTube, the distributors are the service providers themselves. And they distribute these products free of charge to the end customers. And they've been asked, or we've been asked, to take the money from the customers, where it is not a distribution business model. So the whole model have changed. It's disruption that it is causing an overall disruption of the overall telecom industry. And we have to find a way. I think, of course, technology has to play a very vital role in doing this and innovating and coming up with solutions. But I think it's an issue or a challenge that the overall industry have to solve.
I like also Saleem's comment that it's not a fair question. It's a question to be asked. Not a fair question, but it is important that
If you don't mind, I'll just comment on my own question.
You have another question?
No. I'll just to explain what I meant, and it was, of course, it was just a teasing question for the CTOs on the head table.
But it's a very good question, actually.
And on the other side, the point that I wanted to make, what is said is true. Of course, you cannot compete with the two developers working from a garage. But what I'm saying is, one of the challenges we have ahead of us is the technical team thinks commercially. To bridge the gap between, because sometimes we're good to sell what the structure or the infrastructure gives us to sell. Sometimes we don't have the time to ask, can our infrastructure do this or that? And usually you'll be surprised that most of the time the answer is yes, we can do it. So it's better comes from the technical team itself when they start talking commercially, and they have to be part of the customer experience as well. Because if they're not part of the customer experience and they understand it very well, I believe they'll always be limited to the technical side of the story only. Thank you.
Can I also just ask or maybe throw back the question to the CEOs in the room as to, when you talk about, and it's a fair question what you're saying, and a fair comment, are the CTOs participating in the commercialization? Are the CEOs also bringing, if I can say that way, we're talking about business models here. Most of the discussion is around a business model. We're talking about challenges to the business model. Are the CEOs bringing those to the, is this being clarified to the enterprise, to the whole organization? Is there a specific new business model being communicated, adopted? Are the CTOs really aligned with what this business model is? I think there's a definite share of responsibility among the CEOs, not just CEOs, of course, but the CTOs, the CMOs, and CCOs, and what have you, to come up with a new view of the business model of that particular operator or service provider, because each one has their own challenges and issues.
Of course.
And then the CTOs will in turn enable that transformation from a technology standpoint.
The CTOs are a strategic and a very important member of the overall strategy of the company. And this is the case, at least as far as I know, in the Jordan operation. And the CTO is contributing to the commercial strategy of the company. But what I'm saying, and go back to my question, when they will speak with the same confidence, okay, that when they talk about the technical infrastructure, you'll see them so confident talking about towers and infrastructure, radio, and so on and so forth.
Fair enough.
But today, technically speaking, talking about IT and infrastructure at the same time, there are so many solutions that can come from there. Talking as a CEO, if the team in total talks commercially and understands customer experience, and this is what I'm saying. And so when they speak with the same confidence, taking into consideration those two important parts.
Well, it's a good point, actually. There was some statistics around that I'm sorry, CTOs, but 80% of the CTOs don't actually lose their job because of the misalignment with business. And that's a statistic that was in the UK, actually. And it's not just to the telecom industry, it's the general industry, but there was a misalignment between technology and business, and 80% of the CTOs lose their job because of that. It's a perception, it's reality.
But about CCOs?
CCOs?
They're not here. They lose revenue, they're out.
Bassam and Chaucy from TE Connectivity. Couple of points here. I mean, I think there was a good discussion about the quality of service, which is driving customer experience. I think also was mentioned by Yousef about, the demand for fiber to the antenna, the micro layer coverage and so forth, and then from, Imad talked about the different strategies. How come we don't do a lot of network sharing, neutral host concept in the region? I mean, I think Saudi is the only one that's about to start with a neutral host concept, but why not try to leverage the networks into a more efficient spending that can give better customer service experience at the end?
Should we start with the Near East markets as far as feedback?
I don't believe that network sharing here is really sorting out the issue of coverage, mainly for many reasons. The first mover advantage here for the incumbent operator plays a role here, number one. Number two, most of the operators, the minute we are talking about sharing, we are talking about just eliminating 2/3 of the sites and just keeping one tower in a place. And this specifically will not sort out the issue of speed and coverage and capacity that is really the customers are aiming to. So probably will just give us a cost efficiency factor rather than maximizing the customer experience. We cannot link sharing and co-location with customer experience.
Couldn't that spare some resources and allocate more for investments?
The issue is not easy, especially in our region where the landlords really are eager to get more money and more rental.
That's the problem.
The issue is really not straightforward. We tried that to try to have better operational cost. The minute we go and co-locate, immediately the landlord increased the prices and the rental 2 times and 3 times. And sometimes you go into disturbances for your site and your equipment. So issues in our region are linked a bit with culture and tradition. You cannot go and say co-location and site sharing is something possible. Today we have, as an example, in Jordan, we have collectively 6,000 towers. Yeah. Each of us owns mostly 1/3 out of that. Those 6,000 towers mainly support 6,000 families within Jordan. Having them eliminated to 2/3, you will come up with another dimension. So taking into consideration as well the government situation in Jordan, things are not really easy and straightforward when it comes to co-location. But again, this has nothing to do with enhancing customer experience at all. It may result into better cost efficiency, but in order to reach customer satisfaction, you need a different model of laying out your antennas and your base stations.
I agree.
I don't know, Imad, if you have the same situation or you want to comment?
Yeah, similar situation. And I want to add, sometimes adding site will not solve a problem, especially at the macro layer. Now, to share infrastructure on the indoor solution, yes, I fully agree. But on the outdoor level, it's not a real advantage. We don't see a real advantage here in our region. Because we are talking about co-location and not tower co, which is different concept.
But it does work in more mature markets.
That was 3 questions.
Yeah, in the mature market, yeah, it's works.
It's working really well.
This last question, there's 3 questions for you. So we're supposed to do 1 question each. Last question from the audience. No, unfortunately, I'm getting the signal that we have to get off soon. So last question from the audience. There was someone raising their hand over there. Oh, right next to you? Here. Oh.
Yeah, this is Khalid Saif from Doom. Today, the big question is, are we selling the data as per the technology that we are providing to the customers? I mean, today we don't have a product that is defined to define the user experience. Today we are selling data. I'm selling 10 JPs per month, for example. But am I classifying which customers are using which layer in my network? Do I have a 4G Facebook user on my layer? Do I have a 3G Facebook user on my layer? I mean, I think we need to redefine the experience that the customer is able to buy from my side as an operator.
Question or comment?
Well, that's a comment.
Comment, okay. Thank you. Thank you, panelists, and appreciate your time, and I guess we'll be moving on.